Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RashLaVista.co's weekend frivolity, our broiler chicken show. I took the day off yesterday, just totally try. In fact, I forced myself to like turn the computer screens off. Just no, don't look at anything, Brian. And actually, I felt a lot better this morning, sort of forcing myself to take a break. And oh, am I supposed to do that too? Sorry, Jay. I got Alex through the day. Um, the daily briefs. Alex now is sort of spoiled me. So I have to remember how I have to do all this stuff here. Hold on a second. Hey, there we are. Okay, so and I did this as just an internal video. We don't need to do them for the public all the time. The hell with them. So this is just for us. So there's the YouTube link there for you, Jeremy. And nice to see you. Hope you don't disappear. Hey, you had mentioned you wanted me to come to Zurich. These guys are putting together one hell of a plan for Zurich. It would really suck if you didn't come. Because these guys are going. They're good. They're doing. They got the whole one St. Gentleman did like up a whole. All right. These are your 150 choices of things to do, Brian, with pictures and links and everything. It's just like, holy Jesus. These guys have done a lot of work. So anyway, would be nice to see you. Yeah, but I know I'd love to see you both. And actually, there are some people that are saying, yeah, I'll come to one, then I'll come to another and stuff like that. So that's totally awesome. But anyway, there's David. David's sort of my Zurich guy. David's like totally gone above and beyond. So super stoked. Yeah, hey dude. So my fate is in your hands. And actually, I should mention Andrew, who was just in the lounge there a few minutes ago, and he was PMing me that he forgot his password. Oh boy, Andrew. So we'll try and get that hooked up. Andrew, send a message to the boys on the back end, and they'll tell you what to do. Because frankly speaking, I don't know how you reset your password on this WordPress. It drives me crazy. So send that email. But Andrew, myself, and Shane, we had just an absolutely wonderful afternoon yesterday. Went and made chicken kebabs on Andrew's barbecue. And just sat around talking markets and crypto and stuff with a whole bunch of 20-year-old guys. And you could see they're so full of aspiration. And my number one message was, man, I just wish I had some old geezer like me in my life when I was their age, just to sit and just tell you, dudes, like, just learn this shit now. Just get it down now while you're young. And then when you're my age, you're going to be so stinking rich, you know what the hell to do with all the money. But so it was a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience. And so Andrew and Shane, and keep in mind, the bear is coming to Vancouver. It's a bit odd that we're doing this sort of ships passing in the night, but that's the way it is. So the Bears coming to Vancouver next week, or maybe the week after. I'm not quite sure. So Shane and Andrew, you guys are charged with taking good care of the bear when he's in town here. And I also know Tanjay's around, and a few other people I think are in Vancouver. So maybe we can work on you guys all having fun while Thomas is here too. I'm, of course, heading over to Europe in a couple weeks. I think I leave officially. It's the 15th today. And when is it? 7, 8, 9, about 10 days. Getting close. Tick, tick, tick. So just a sort of general shout out to those different participants. David, like you're handling the Zurich group. The Germans, they're all rocking it now. Got them really firing on all cylinders. Tom, you and the UK gang are all working really nicely together. The Amsterdam, look at it. You can see the Zurich. Look, they're chatting away. The Zurich people are chatting. If we want to do like a hangout before, I actually leave, just to confirm, not a bad idea. So maybe in the various different Telegram groups, we can, maybe even put together like a Hangout agenda or something, just so that we're all on the same page and we can talk for a bit. Totally up for that. So let's work on that over the next week if you want. And yeah, Tom, if you want to reach out to like Jamie and stuff, and Raph and Bobo and Warwick and all them, that would be totally awesome. But I'm sure they're going to watch this later on too. So I suppose we ought to give a hearty congratulations to France. They won the World Cup. Woo! Birdie, birdie, birdie. I wonder where Loic is. I haven't seen Loic on the site in a bit, but and it's interesting, I guess, because of the language barrier. We don't have too many French people on the site. But if you do see Loic on the site, give him a big congrats, I suppose. And are you technically French, Jay? I thought you were Swiss, but all right. Well, we'll give it to you. Congratulations, Jeremy. Way to go. All right, yeah, and you're going to your dad's birthday or something in the south of France fairly shortly, aren't you? Yeah. All right, so enough blibber blabber. I'm sorry, guys. I always seem to start these videos off with 5-10 minutes of stuff that you're like, why the hell am I listening to this? So let's get down to some charts. Primarily on the weekend, we like to talk crypto, so I won't talk really too much stock market here. I suppose, once upon a time in a land far, far away, we have that actually, this isn't a terrible chart to work off of. I like to use Phoenix. It seems to be sort of a nice third party, sort of, unrelated to OKCoin and the forwards, and not really part of the sort of stamp crowd and Coinbase and all that. So, we've been sort of talking a little bit about the potential for a bottom to come in here for a while now. And it's taken quite a while for this consolidation to play itself out. And really, that's basically what consolidations are supposed to do. I suppose you could argue top in the range at present seems to be about this sort of, let's call it 6,000-7,000, right? You can see that the actual 7,000 level, which should be a magnet, is a notable notch in the profile. So you can see there should be a bunch of business done here. In fact, we even call this like a double distribution on the profile, where you have one profile up here, that's this consolidation, and now this profile here, that's this consolidation. And ideally, the profile wants to look just like one big parabola, and so that means there's some unfinished business in here. And we often talk about, look left. I think that if we accept above this level here, this sort of neckline that we've been talking about, inverted head and shoulders, you're probably going to see a quick jump right back up into here. And then, of course, all the kids will come in and panic and FOMO buy up here, right? And so then what do they do after that? Well, they work the market back down, and they slowly fill in this big notch here. So don't be shocked if that plays itself out. I am actually quite pleased. We've had a few days, keep in mind this is a daily chart, so a few days where they brought the market down against this shoulder level that we've been talking about for a while, and you can see they tagged it and reversed it nicely. And we actually put in 2 successive inside bar days. So, one could very easily argue that this is a cute little triangle resolution here. Boom. Boom. So we came into a head, and you had the moving averages acting as resistance. And, those people that follow fractals, right, inside bars, can't really call this harami because baby's feet are outside of mommy's body. But nonetheless, not bad sort of fractally pivoty price action off of this level. And I seem to remember that, and I don't know whether it was last week, but I seem to remember it almost feels like it was like last Saturday we were talking about this, but I seem to remember us talking about where's the best place to show this? Probably not here. Let's go douche. Where did I show this? Well, here's not a bad example. This happens to be on OKCoin, but you can see this right across the board. For those people that did have the kahunas to step in and actually take longs off of this reload zone in here, turns out that was a pretty good idea. Tough trade, not going to argue it one bit. You better have your trading plan all vetted out, and your reasons for acting defined. Reload zone, horizontal support and resistance. You want to wait for the inside bar, so be it. You can even see on this off of this stab into the reload zone, there was like an instant counter trend rally. And if we drill down to probably like the 4-hour chart, you can see that, and this was on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, into the retail close, right into the retail close on Friday. You notice that they backed her up into another reload zone. So, for those that are in sort of the day trading kind of mindset, absolutely love reload zones within reload zones as trade location. And also, too, if hopefully you've heard me say this before, because it's a super powerful concept. This idea of candle body levels, in these zones as trade location. And if you had just sort of said, okay, I'm going to buy against this candle body low, you could risk to here, or it could even go lower. But even if you just said, look, I'm going to try and target this reload zone, look at that crazy ass fill there, eh? I mean, basically the market, there's that level that we identified. There's even a gap there, right? So you work your bid in here. Maybe you get filled in through this mess. That's the amount of heat that you took on the trade, and you can see how it worked out nicely, eh? So if anything, this is like a total trader's trade. And I can understand. There's, lots of reasons. Just even trade location itself, reload zone within reload zone, and a gap to work with. And then, right here, you can see Sanskrit spat out a gapping signal. You could work it off of those candle body lows or just the gap level. Wow, one hell of a trade location in there. And that would have taken balls of steel, right? If you were actually trading like this and you had went and bought that, I would say that you have bought the TRA punch Kool-Aid. You've drunk the Kool-Aid. You are a professional trader. If all of you should look at this screen and go, okay, maybe psychologically I'm not at the point of being able to take this trade now, but get in there and force yourself to take these paper trades and just keep on logging them, keep doing it over and over and over and over. And you'd be surprised over time. It gets a lot easier and easier to identify these. I suppose you could even argue, and I don't know how this candle went, but you could even argue that this was the same logic here, right? If we go candle body lows, right there, reload zone, right there, and it gave you another just insane level to work with. And if you got that trade off, man, you'd be a genius. So the cool part about this shit is it does work. It doesn't work 100% of the time, and that's half our problem as traders. Is nothing's going to work 100% of the time, but this works enough that if you can, I mean, even if you just said, okay, look at, I'm going to try and do this candle body low, but I'm going to get chicken shit, and if we dump through here, I'm going to get the hell out of there, and then just force yourself to 2-to-1 risk reward. Where is that? I guess that's right in this area here, right? Somewhere in there. Let's take this off. Looks like right there. If I could get you guys to the point where you can show us that you're taking these kind of trades, oh my God, I've won. I've done everything I'm supposed to do here. So I'm not going to say it's easy. Don't get me wrong. Nobody ever said this shit was easy, but this is the shit just like that. That's right, Joshua. Anyway, and I do remember that we were sort of chattering about this as an important level. And then also, too, if we think about where this developed, and, the worst part about it is you always look back on this in hindsight and you go, oh, of course it happened there. That's where it's supposed to happen, right? But again, if you think those shoulder kind of concepts, I mean, now hopefully, ideally what you'd love to be able to do is see this bigger picture, see this W, see this level, reload zone. So you're like, okay, this is a trade location. And then if you want to drill down like the hourly or whatever to hunt that reload zone, okay, great, rock and roll. And then, of course, as we're coming down into here, do you see any sort of signs of divergence to try and, show that maybe price is stronger than what price is leading you to believe? Well, look at that, eh? Yeah, and we even had it already drawn up here. So can you guys see that? Boobity boo, boobity boo. Right, this thing made lower low here, lower low in price here, coming into the reload zone, higher low in MACD. Then we rallied up, kind of chopped around, put in another tight little bottom here. No more divergences here. We just keep making higher highs and higher lows here. So, I think off of the higher time frame, I was seeing Willie Stupid here, but you can clearly see Willie Stupid here. So, do it as you please. I think there was a nice little day trader's trade in there. Little, tough to take. I'm not going to say it's easy. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely think there was a trade there. And then, the higher time frame premise that we're all sort of hoping for here is where's the best place to show you? Well, you can see it off of the GAN angles. We ideally would love to see the nice pivot come in here. Same thing off of ETH. ETH had a hugely important pivot level here. We really want to see these lows hold here. If she can get back above here, then rock and roll, man. We're off to the races. All right, so here is where I had on these head and shoulders studies. And interesting too, as we were sort of making this market structure bottom, there's that reload zone we just talked about, inside bar. The institutional moving averages cross back below bearish here, so they're not very happy right now. But if we can get this structure to actually form and come in, then I think that's going to launch these moving averages higher. And maybe if we're really lucky, we can get, like this is an out-of-the-box RSI oscillator. Maybe we can get that to launch itself through this 50 level in earnest. And then we have nice structure basing this sort of bullish trend. And actually, this is a really cool conversation in that, institutional moving averages bearish red, right? We slightly dipped our head above the 50 line and the moving averages crossed bullish. Then you notice that we dip back below the 50 line and the moving averages cross back bearish. Isn't that cool how that sort of almost perfectly coincides? So I really like this sort of the juxtaposition of the RSI 50 line and the moving average institutional bias to try and help us sort of frame what the tone of the market is right now. So below 50 line, coming up against supports, reload zones, shoulders in head and shoulders patterns. And if we can hold this, break through the 50 line, obviously that's going to be further market structure. Julian loves that, his trend line analysis off RSI. That will launch the moving averages back green again. And we actually have some structure to frame the actual trade. And I think that makes sense, right? I try to sort of teach this that, location-wise, we've been talking location for a while now, especially if we work off of things like the weekly chart. We're in location. And this is kind of why not really the biggest fan of hunting shorts right here. I just don't think this is such a great short location. If anything, what I'd like to see is a nice little counter trend rally against these highs. And then if we start, doing things like reload zone failures against that high there, you can see if I was, thinking short, I'd really like to see this level right in there. So hunting shorts here, I'm not the biggest fan. We'll see how this goes. Ideally, I'd love to. I'm gonna get rid of this line. See if we can get rid of that one. There we go. Ideally, you know, and actually this is interesting because intuitively I just drew this line. Maybe I'm expecting a test of 38.2 here at the very least. And then if this is a bull, we come back down, test these lows, turn back up, W, and woohoo, away we go. Everybody's going to get rich again. Ah! But we're still a little bit too early for that, right? So if anything, we got to wait for that 38.2 test. Let's see if this does bottom. If it does, then rock and roll. But if it doesn't, we roll over and we have to come back down. That's totally acceptable too. So, you know, I suppose if we get, you know, 1 high, 2 high, 3 highs against 38.2, that will set up the bot, right? Because the bot needs a minimum of 33 and a maximum of 66. So as long as we get that sort of bounce back up into 38.2 area and then start structuring out, well, then I can start hunting shorts again. But right here, as it is right now, I'm just not overly excited about hunting shorts. So, you know, and that's just my personal bias. You know, if you're still thinking short and you'd like to be hunting shorts, and, you know, if that's what's in your trading plan, rock and roll. All right, so we talked a little bit about head and shoulders, talked a little bit about moving average sort of bias and how the RSI is playing itself out here. I am leaning towards the bull side. I do understand that there is a couple what I would consider fairly significant fundamental events coming up over the next week or two, which we've been sort of waiting for quite a while. One of them is relatively new in that the U.S., I think it's the House of Representatives, but I'm not totally positive. It is some American body. Let's see where it is. I tweeted something about it last week. Here we are. This, I think, in the short term is going to be dominating people's attention here. Do they give a day when this is going to happen? Wednesday, July 18th. So I have a feeling there is a pivot coming up on this date here. Now, the interesting thing is, you remember was it March? Geez, was it that long ago? When Bitcoin dad kind of thing testified in front of the U.S. Congress and all that. Bitcoin's not so bad. Quit shitting on these guys, right? I think he was the CFTC guy, Garzarelli or whatever his name is. So it was interesting. Into that event, price, spiked down. And then following that event, so it was a sell the rumor. And then following that event, price spiked back up by the news. So it's going to be really interesting to watch how price acts. I don't really know what the best course of action is here. I'm leaning towards I would prefer that price stay soft into those events. People are worried or they're uncertain. But I got to tell you, man, there's a lot of sort of geopolitical shit that's going on right now that has me wondering whether, some of this bid that we're seeing in crypto right now is more a proxy of politicians visiting different parts of the world and running into really dramatic protests. And, it's a very stressful time we live in the world right now, which really sucks. My advice to all of you, especially Grim, I know you're American. I don't know anyone else. Any Canadians, whatever you say, if you're going over that U.S.-Canadian border, do not make any reference to owning anything that has anything to do with marijuana. Just don't do it.
My wife is freaked out about the current state of affairs. Being a resident down. She's not a U.S. citizen. She's a Canadian citizen, and she's a permanent resident down here. But yeah, she's stressed out.
Somebody has decided to turn the temperature up on this Canadian-U.S. relationship big time right now. And I actually saw there's people that are actually getting like lifetime bans from visiting the United States for making reference to owning American companies, like they've actually made investments in American companies that are involved in the marijuana industry. This makes no sense whatsoever. It's insanity what's going on here. But during fear cycle peaks, this is exactly what's supposed to happen. You know, we are supposed to have no confidence in the system. We're supposed to have question our leaders. We're supposed to, you know, basically turn our finger up at the status quo. Everything. I mean, it is the scenario that we're living in right now is perfect for fear. It's quite remarkable, really. You know, so I wonder how much of crypto's uppy over the weekend here is nothing more than people are getting really fearful, scary. I don't know. I mean, I'm disappointed. What can you say? There's not really much you can do about it. But, you know, it is the world that we live in. And it sucks because I'd like to come and visit the States. But everything about everything is telling me, you know, get on planes and go to the UK. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to fly over the North Pole over to the UK and hang around in Europe for a little while. Oh, I don't know whether I could get back, though. It's going to be tough. Well, did you? I mean, I was shocked, Tom, about that cover of the newspaper there. Mr. Trump, how dare you? All that. Oh, God. What's happened to this world? We used to be so nice. People used to joke about getting blowjobs in the White House. Yeah, well, how times have changed. Anyway, I'm not. You know, my job here is not to make political comments, and my views are entirely Brian's. They do not reflect the viewers of the opinions of this broadcasting station or its ownership. How does that go? All that line. Keep in mind, all this political rhetoric is entirely Brian, and the only thing I can possibly say is that it definitely feeds into this fear sort of environment that we're in right now. That's the only thing I can say about it. It's just crazy. But oh well. And what I did find what was interesting here, heading into these fundamental events coming up here, is, like I said, I noticed that, you know, both Ethereum and Bitcoin are catching bids here. Crypto is catching a bid. Let's see. Grim says, I missed the last couple DBs. Did you guys talk about this? I don't know. Let's see. What is this?
This is pretty interesting. Swiss Stock Exchange developing a cryptocurrency exchange.
Yeah, Mr. Bear seems to keep me up to date on this kind of stuff.
I saw this yesterday, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Blockchain-based infrastructure for trading, settlement, and custody of digital assets.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like,
you know, the irony of it all is these silly crypto exchanges are making more profits than a lot of these classic stock exchanges, eh?
Right.
I'm sure at some point these guys are going, hey, these kids are eating our lunch.
Well, and as Stephen will tell you, right, the Swiss are very, and as we all know, the Swiss are very cryptocurrency friendly. So it kind of makes sense that we do that there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Jeremy, and actually it's interesting, because Zurich is one of the stops on the tour. And there's even one little town that's sort of like official crypto town. And everything about the town is all geared towards crypto, which I thought was really interesting. Crypto Silicon Valley, yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy was saying that when you go to catch like the train terminals, you can also buy crypto at the same place where you buy those tokens.
That's kind of like the Japanese.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Just filling up my coffee. Sorry.
Oh, Jeremy, I didn't see you were here, man. Hey, how's it going, man?
Official production crew here.
Talking for you. Sorry about that.
That's all good. It's all good. Yeah, like in Japan, you know, it's the patriotic thing to do to buy government bonds and support your government, and you can actually buy them at the post office. And that's where most people do their investing, is at the post office. So I wonder if Switzerland's going to turn into that kind of situation too. So anyway, okay. So we talked a little bit about Bitcoin. You know, not a heck of a lot has changed. We're waiting for this Head and Shoulders consolidation to resolve itself, and until it does, you know, we're sort of sitting here just waiting. as I said just a moment ago, for those that had balls and that can manage their emotions, I think there was a half decent entry that was given to you here over the past day or two off of this trade location. And, you know, for those people that are playing lower time frames, right, like the hourlies, I think you had your 2-to-1 hit. Should probably take partial profits on those lower time frame setups and basically be sitting in a risk-free position right now, right? So in this particular case, that's buying, you know, on OKCoin, buying down in these areas on these reload zone tests. You can see the divergence here. You know, we've in fact probably we probably had 38.2 hit here. Oh, not quite. Okay, so it could still work its way up a bit more and probably coming into these liquidity pools here on OKCoin. So, you know, if you had the balls to take the longs off of here, you know, I definitely know Mr. Bear. He's probably, you know, screaming about taking some profits in here. Maybe move your stop to scratch on the remaining, yada, yada, yada. Actually, you know what I was pleased to see, and you know, I suppose we'll make a comment about this here, is that this isn't just sort of like a Bitcoin bottom that seems to be coming in. I seem to be seeing it all over the place. So whether it be something like this NEO, you can see that same sort of WE type pattern trying to form there, or off of the Verge, right? You can see that same WE pattern trying to form there. Here's our ADA. It's basically come right back down to the original bottom, trying to W. You know, Litecoin, you know, we often said that Litecoin's a nice leading indicator, and look how Litecoin's acting in here, right? Came right back against the bottom end of the range. You know, like if Mr. Bear, because Mr. Bear, I think, was getting quite excited about trading Litecoin and Ethereum forwards and stuff now. And, you know, hopefully everybody can see that basically this just came right down into a reload zone here. So kind of like what we were saying recently, Litecoin seems to be acting as a bit of a leading indicator. So you can kind of see the double bottom. You can see, you know, just on this chart alone, we'll get a nice little double bottom breakout signal on a move through this high here, right? Down, up, down, and look where we are. Interesting. So, and, you know, by definition, if we can finish the day here, you know, it's only 11 o'clock. Who knows what the hell the rest of this day is going to look like. But if we can finish up here, hopefully everybody can understand this is a great example of those trapped bears, right? And you could argue, remember we talked about candle body lows there just a moment ago on the other coins? Look at that level. Holy Shiite Muslim. I mean, just evil. So, you know, probably against these levels, right? That was just a sick-ass trade level. And in essence, the dip down into here gave these trap bears the opportunity to hop off and just walk away from a bad trade. I suppose, you know, this is a very powerful reversal bar. These guys right down in here, they are now the new trapped bears right in there. And my hunch is probably rally up into here, and then you do your reload zone. Maybe we even break out of this bigger range. And then on any sort of subsequently pull back, you know, Brian's going to be watch those candle body close levels, right in there and right in there. And in essence, this is, you know, the move back down to test these lows will give those trapped bears the opportunity to get out. And that'll be, you know, a good place for you to look for a pivot. So that's something to keep an eye on. And it looks to me like this son of a bitch is going to break out as we're speaking here. That'd be funny if we like put on some other chart, then come back to this and pow, it's just like gone through the roof here. It feels like a very uppy market right now, eh? So, you know, trend line wise, I'm not as excited about this one because ideally I like to see like 3 tests of a trend line to mark that it's sort of been resolved. And I think if we zoom out on this one, if we go off of the highs, we go 1 high, 2 highs, I'd actually like to see price come up, and you can see how that will form a double bottom there. I'd actually like to see that break out, and then I'd like to actually see structure on the other side of this trend line. So, I mean, I suppose, you know, W's are W's are W's, and what the hell, this is a pretty good, you know, level, basically underneath the 78.6, pretty much right off of like Ian's Leprechavark level, like 88.6. So, you know, location-wise, not bad. And I suppose, I don't know whether I have it on here, maybe not. If we look at internals, my hunch is there's probably like divergence that develops through here. Let's see if we can find it off another chart. Well, LTC. And where's the best place for us to look at this? Maybe Phoenix. It's pretty liquid there. Oh, interesting. You can see nice weekly divergence trying to come in. Willie, nice and stupid. OBV hasn't really turned on the weeklies though yet. Maybe a bit early off the weeklies. Dailies. So yeah, pretty powerful. In fact, this is a good example of double divergence. So you got this big ass one, which confirmed there to move through there. And then you also have this little one right here. And that confirms right there. So you got like a double divergence. Price is actually a lot stronger than what price would lead you to believe here, guys. This is interesting. Double D's, that's right, Chung. Andrew. So, and you know, the interesting thing is 200 SMAs all the way up here. I mean, that's almost a double, right? And I see a lot of this. So, you know, like location. And, you know, it's interesting. I put a tweet out about this earlier today. You know, it was, you know, as the market was zooming up there, man, it was so difficult to try and slow people down. Wait for, you know, your reload zones. And actually, this is a good example where sometimes a double bottom itself comes in, you know, on a try and recapture. And I don't even know if that's probably the best level. Maybe we should be going all the way off of there. I don't know. It's a tough one. But in essence, the W here is going to set up right off of sort of a recapture of that 78.6. I've seen that time and time again. And, you know, we'll sometimes see the market will stab into 88.6 and the knife catchers, they're like, wow, what a fucking level, man. But then I notice over time, the actual W itself comes in right off the 78.6 here. So, you know, put it all together. I don't see any reason whatsoever to argue with somebody who's like, Brian, I'm totally going to take this W. Right? I've got my divergences. I got Willie Stupid. I've got trade location. I've got structure now. I mean, I got to go. Right? I got to take the trade. I think if anything, that if I had a conversation with somebody and that's how the conversation went, I'd be like, do it. Right? Got to follow your plan. Might be a little bit early to be front running this. You know, if you have the balls, you could be zipping in here. And, you know, this would be like Mr. Bear. You know, he would be pulling up sort of like the 1 hour, 4 hour kind of charts and talking about hunting longs off of, you know, reload zones. This is everything that we just talked about at Bitcoin. It's almost identical. And if you did take these shots here, try and, you know, get yourself into a risk-free position as quick as possible. And if we break these lows, you just got to walk away. Right? It's as simple as that. So if anything, that's actually a really good conversation. The difference between a trader hunting setups, right, through all this, and then the investor even could be little old lady. We're just waiting here patiently for, you know, this reload zone to play itself out. Actually, really a great example of both sort of sides of the equation. An idea that I'm interested in right now that jumped out at me this morning is this Lumens XLM. What's interesting about XLM is that this guy actually pumped. I remember last fall, Michael came in to the community. Do you remember that, Grim? Do you remember when Michael was in the community last fall? And he was telling Joshua, you remember that? He was like, I'm super bullish on this lumens, right through this area here, September, October. He was like, oh, just rah bull. And then the fucking market just went crazy, right? And the weird part about it is, as we were sort of going through this move here, people were like, there's no way there's things going up here. No way, right? I mean, I could completely understand reload zones. It makes sense why the market sort of stalled against these highs up in here, candle body highs, right? You see that doink there. My advice to people is, this is venture capital. Remember Amanda's penthouse? That was funny. Andrew, are you here? Yeah, there's Andrew. We were talking about Amanda's penthouse last night, right? And trying to explain the whole concept of parking garages and stuff like that to people. And really, I don't think it's in our best interest to call tops in venture capital because you don't know what the fuck's going to happen here. I mean, you really don't. Nobody could explain Amanda's penthouse yesterday. Right. Well, I mean, yesterday, all through like fucking 2017, nobody could explain it. I would argue that it was the only crypto that had any sex appeal. And so as a result, all these guys just piled in chasing after Amanda. But the point of the matter is had you, and try and remember this image for when we look at this in a moment from now. Had anybody, when we looked at this image, said, I fully expect that, let's see, do we have any old highs? Oh, well, let's see. What happens if we go, I know this sounds crazy, but yeah, let's just try it, see what happens. We go boo to boo, right? And as we were going through this, if somebody had zoomed out and gone, well, I think it's more than realistic to expect a tag of this trend line going forward, right? And you look back in hindsight, and that's peanuts. It's almost laughable how low that is in comparison to where the actual market topped out. But when we were going through this, if I had drawn that line boobity-boo there to there and said, all right, here's the double bottom, let's use this as an upside objective, right? People are like, you're crazy. There's no fucking way market's going all the way up there. And yet the irony of it all is this thing went substantially well beyond, right? And that's sort of a trader's life. Really, what I'd love to be able to do is identify these W's, and especially if you have like really stupid and momentum divergence and all that kind of stuff. Let's see if that happened through here. Not so much, I suppose through here, there's a bit of divergence that develops through here. And interestingly enough, this low here was higher than this low. So a massive divergence, just a huge one. There to there. And there to there. So any sort of resolution of that, this was a tough one because I don't think it really came in until we blasted through there. Maybe a hunch your longs here. I don't know. That's a tough one. For those that were adventurous, really nice, cute little double bottoms here, ranges, whatever. That number is 0.0015. So that means that you can get yourself a free position or a free look on a tag of 3. So that's like sort of anywhere up in this area. Now, I don't know where the hell the damn market's going to go, but if you can get yourself, if you bought here and you risked against here, right, let's just say, we'll go long, right there, double bottom breakout. Brian says buy W's. Put that there. And then I don't know why it always does this. Yeah, it's going to go to like 0. You piece of poo. Do that. You going to work for me? Come on, I just got to get the levels. Nope. It's a piece of, oh, there it is, way down there. Okay, so let's see if we can go like that. And come on. Maybe I have to reboot the computer. I don't know. Tough one. All right, so we're going to risk to the new lows, risk against that tail. In this particular case, I mean, it's crazy ass risk rewards, but really what we want to do is try and get a double and get yourself that free look. Oh, now where the hell did it go? Jesus. Oh, there it is, way up there. Now, are you going to stay put? It shouldn't surprise us. 2.5 to 1. Well, that sounds about realistic. That's not really outlandish, but hopefully, can you see that sort of setup coming in here, especially a beautiful clothesline level right there, right? Doink. You could risk against here, I suppose, right? If you're talking W's. Well, Brian, you said the W risk against there. You could have risked against there. I think I might be inclined to risk against that low, but that's just me. There's that double level. It's better than 2 to 1. Rock and roll, looking sexy. And of course, if we go, previous highs. Remember we talked about reload zones, right? Going the other direction. So it really shouldn't surprise us that it shot up into this area here. Ran into resistance against all these highs. Really, I like, to keep it nice and conservative, I like to use a 50% level as a target. Yeah, there we go. So you could even have stretched that out a bit more and said, I'm going to use the 50% level as my target, right? Still gives you well over a double, gives you that free look. And this is really where, guys make the big bucks in capitalism, is get that free position established. So if you sell half on a double, even at this level, who can tell me what your risk is on the ownership of the other coins? This is so key, guys. 0, that's right. Thank you. I mean, we kind of poo-poo it here. We kind of make fun of it, right? It's almost too easy, right, for us. But if we can do this, this changes the whole nature of speculating in the market. If you can get yourself where the risk of ownership is 0, you get, theoretically, the anxiety should just melt away. So, I highly encourage everybody, try and get yourself into this risk-free position as fast as possible. Now, once you've hit this point, then really the rest is up to you. You want to shoot for 10x? All right, well, you can let some more go at 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, whatever. Now, let's zoom out and just see what ultimately ended up happening with your free position. So that's there. You see, this is the capitalist story. And most people, they can't believe that this can actually even happen. It's just beyond them. Thought it was really interesting. Shane and I were having a great conversation yesterday. And the similarities between this top and the Silk Road top, and how there really wasn't any sort of major scandal or anything that really hit the Bitcoin market this past December, January. I mean, there really wasn't, it wasn't like a Mt. Gox scenario, right, where, the whole infrastructure of the space could have collapsed. This was just a CME futures listing event. That was it. So it was interesting. Shane makes the argument that you could very easily see that 20,000 wasn't really the top. We could easily go up to 50, 100,000. Jeremy's kind of numbers, Mr. Penis Eater kind of numbers. And we're just sort of setting the base now with this first run. Who knows? I mean, I'm not here to predict the future and say Bitcoin's going to go to 100,000. That's not what I'm here to do. What I am here to do is try and put myself into a position that if that does happen, I can take advantage of that event with the least amount of anxiety possible. Because keep in mind, guys, right? I like what hair I've got left, and it's going. I got to try and keep as much of it on top there as possible. This is good. This is a serious concern for guys at my age, right? Didn't mean to shock everybody there, right? Oh, you can see the World Cup playing on my 1980s TV there in the background. So the point of the matter here is, I don't think we ought to get into the business of calling tops in venture capital, because sometimes these things will go so far. If we sat here and anybody at this point here said, oh yeah, but this is going to go 10x from here, people would say you're crazy. I would simply say, okay, well, we did have this peak, And if we just play connect the dots off of I remember, when these ICO candles happen and people say, oh yeah, but it traded up there. It'll never go back up there again. I would simply say take previous highs and just draw lines off of them to give you a guide as to where price could go. And in this particular case, you're long off of here. And if you took profits here, fucking A, man, that's a hell of a trade. But of course, we actually missed quite a bit of the bull here, right? So, don't be in a position. And this is why I like to sell half on a double, keep some on the books, because you just never know in this crazy game. So here we are. You can see the double bottom that's trying to come in, very similar to what we saw down here. I don't know whether this is the bottom. Nobody does. But I do find it interesting that if we just draw that same sort of connect the dots kind of thinking, I do find it interesting how that actually projects a price way up here. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen. Not saying it for a moment, but I definitely think that if this thing gets a head of steam behind it, it could happen. Now, if we're looking at this from just in the short term, what I like is the fact that if we do decide to take a risk off of this low, where can we get that free position established? Is it realistic to shoot for that free position? And kind of like what we did off of here, I like to use the 50% level as a target. In this particular case, I could very easily see, pow, zoom right up into the 50% level. In fact, this was RLZ, and then we come back and we have to consolidate for a while, right, to set up the next leg. So could this scenario develop where we could have ourselves a free position established right now? I think it's perfectly logical. There is the past 7 months range. This is the 38.2. This isn't even 50%. This is 38.2, 50%. Well, target actually should be way up here. But what I do like about this 38.2, which really appeals to me, is the fact that it's nestled right against this high and also right against this high. So we actually have like previous highs to shoot for, because keep in mind, these will be liquidity pools. People will have stop loss orders sitting right on the other side of this. And I also noticed, and as soon as I saw this, I thought of Joshua, but look how there's a cheeky little gap right up here. Now, put it all together, markets like to test the bottom end of ranges. Theoretically, we say that if this thing does break out, well, 70 to 80% of the time, we're going to go up and test the top end of the range. I can theoretically generate a risk-free trade for me going forward, just simply looking to buy this W, risk against these lows, and I'm more than happy to risk against this tails low here. You can see that that trade produces a 3-to-1 risk-reward ratio. Those are pretty sexy numbers. And all I'm asking for is just to test a 38.2 of the range. Now, I have no idea if this trade is going to work or not. I don't know. I'm a risk taker in the marketplace. But, we talk about location, reload zones. Probably heard me talk a bit about that before. We talk about lines in the sand. And I even mentioned earlier that quite often I'll see this happen where the market will actually lose the reload zone, but then ultimately the market recaptures the 78.6, and you look back 6 months from now and you go, fuck, oh, that's where I should have been a buyer. God damn it. I see this happen time and time again in this space. Very normal. I look down at my indicators, and on this event down here, Willie was nice and stupid. So that tells me that the public was probably panic selling. I see a W in this momentum oscillator. Geez, don't see that every day. And what's interesting is when we look at things like OBV, we actually have a W coming in on OBV. Can you see that? Down, up, down, breakout. We got a W in Willie. We got a W in OBV. And the cool part about this is actually an example of double divergence. So we have this low starting way back here all the way to there. That's this bigger one, and that was confirmed here. And then we also have this smaller one. All right, there to there, which was confirmed right there. So, I mean, hopefully all of you guys can see that, gee whiz, this is another setup. I have no idea whether this trade's going to work or not. But, 70% of the time, W's do hold. If I start sprinkling in things like double divergences, and who can tell me if we see a W in OBV and you see a W in the Williams percentage R oscillator, is that some sort of setup that we like to follow on the site? The Davos, right? I mean, this is a very wide one, so I don't know whether Dav would feel totally comfortable with this, but nonetheless, W, it's there. And I've got a W in price, 223. In fact, this high is like 222222222. So I just rounded it up to 0.223. So hopefully all of you guys can see the logic in this trade, right? No guarantees from management. I'm not going to guarantee it. I've got a shitload of this stuff on the books. I'm way overweight this coin. Just on Trex alone, I've got, a better part of half a coin. So I don't need to be adding any more to this trade. But I'll definitely keep it on the screen, and let's watch how this develops. I also do really like this trend line 1, 2, 3 structure signal on the other side of the trend line. So this is also a Leanne James setup for us as well. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like this trade, I got to tell you. So we'll see what happens. Now, I thought it was interesting when I tweeted out, this morning when I saw this chart, I tweeted out the big picture chart, right, with this insane trend line. And I tweeted out this image and said, I don't know, but gee whiz, it sure looks like something's very similar is about to happen here. And the pushback I got on this, you're full of hopium. What the fuck is this garbage? You call this technical analysis? You suck, man. I'm not guaranteeing this, but what I am doing is I'm just, let's keep an open mind here, guys. And I added the short-term trade setup to try and generate the free position. That's ideally what I'd love for you guys to be able to get down. And then if this thing does keep on chugging away, just like through here, you just spoon feed the market coins as we work our way higher. Has anybody ever heard me use that expression, spoon feed? All right, this would be an excellent example that once you get into this free position here, you basically set the rules. And if as long as you're in that free position, you have no risk on ownership of the rest of the position, you just sprinkle orders and just have some fun with this investment. And you never know what the hell's going to happen. All right, so I wanted to take a little bit of time this morning to talk a little bit about what I'm seeing there. And ironically enough, there are other trades that are basically developing the same way. We had ETC, basically the same idea, right? There's 38.2. Does this look slightly similar? I mean, it's very interesting how this one actually came right back down to the original little double bottom on the other side of the trend line and gave everybody the opportunity. If you wanted to join me, just basically set the table. There you go. If you feel like participating, get in there. But it's basically the same logic. Now, we could very easily start playing connect the dots off of Barry's name. Say, if this thing gets going and it's another one of these penis eater kind of crazy ass bull markets, we can start painting crazy ass objectives up top here. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to happen, but one thing I've learned about venture capital, never say never in this crazy game. Looks to me like, yeah, I think that's probably the pace that it's going off of. So if this thing gets going, can you see how this is that same sort of logic? Looking for a rally up top there. Same thing. No, not a heck of a lot of difference. Does that make sense, guys? So I'm seeing a lot of this kind of action coming in here right now. Okay, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about today. I don't, of course, I've got this crazy European adventure coming up here, so spending a lot of my time chit-chatting with site members about that. Okay, so Raf is asking ETH, BTC, triangle, and the fib spiral chart study, please. Oh, goodness. I could take a half an hour just to do Raf. Doesn't look like anybody's asked for anything since then. So why don't we finish off with Raf's request, and I'll lead you on your way. So ETH, BTC. Of course, it's always a challenge where to do this. I think Phoenix has got probably the oldest history. Ugh. I don't really like the look of this. I don't know. It's tough to see anything. Well, yeah. Suppose we could probably, maybe even like a weekly one. Let's get the longest history. Is that the longest history? Does anyone have a better one? About Trex, is that yeah, that's a little better. All right. And I don't know whether, honestly, I don't know whether we're best served. If Bitcoin decides to take off here, you might find that the Bitcoin Ethereum relationship just doesn't do a heck of a lot. And if I was just looking at this on first blush, I would just simply say, top of the range, boom. Bottom of the range, boom. All right. And odds are we're probably just going to bang around between these two levels. So, there to there. RLZ. So really not a big surprise. Bottom end of the range. Back up. Top end of the range. And this is like we call RLZ ping pong, right? And the cat gifts. So that's what I think is probably going on right now. And then you could get even tighter and tighter, right? So we can go like here to here. And double RLZs. Brian loves his double RLZs like he loves his double Ds. All right, and then RLZ there. So in the short term, relative to Bitcoin, love the fact that it pivoted through there. Nice, looks like even a nice inside bar right there. That's actually against the POC right there, so that makes a lot of sense. And counter trend rallies, if this thing can hold on here, probably there to there. And then there to there. And that will take us pretty close to overlapping RLZ here. So, and you've heard me talk lots in the past about Kendall body highs, right? That right there. So now I think we're starting to see a level coming in for a trade location right up in here. I was playing with the spiral through the weekend, and the problem with the spiral is that scale is super important. And you notice that I can arbitrarily move the scale here. And I haven't figured out exactly what scale the spiral wants. And the interesting thing with the spiral is what should happen is everything, of course, is geometric. I don't know. Maybe we have to go off of the original bottom. So if that's the case, then triangle's pretty big, eh? It's so big. All right, and then we go like that. So triangle should look something along those lines. You can see very wide playground here, right? Does that make sense, guys? Apex of the triangle should correspond with the 50% level. And then what ends up happening, and I was sort of playing with this through the weekend, is you're going to be creating symmetrical triangles within symmetrical triangles. So the question is that a symmetrical triangle? This should be an isosceles angle, where this angle here should be 110 degrees, and this angle here, both of these should be 35 and 35. Now, the problem with doing that is watch what happens. Even if I change the screen like that, you can see that the angles of the triangle change because the scaling changes. So I'm having a really hard time figuring out what the correct scaling is for these triangles. It's a real challenge. I'll tell you that much by crackers. But we should start with the initial pivot of the triangle. You go from high to low of the range, then 50% level. Then you should just start doing isosceles triangles within. Now this tool here, like you can't use this tool, this trend by angle tool effectively here because you can see these aren't right angles, right? The only way that this trend angle tool works is if you have a one of your angles of the triangle is flat, right? It's horizontal. So you can clearly see I can't measure this angle using this tool. It's ineffective. So I had to go on the sort of, Google tool search tool. And I found this thing. I don't know what the name of it is. It's like Protractor or something like that. Protractor, right? And you can actually adjust the angles based on what floating angle you're using. So it's kind of tricky, but if I do that and then I go boobity boo, and then I pull this over to here, and then I pull this down to here, then this should come out to 110 degrees. So that's 109.8. That's not bad, eh? Considering I just eyeballed that. It's not terrible. So I think on balance, I'm pretty close here with the angles, but I'm not gonna guarantee it. So if that's the case, then next thing we do, and you can just triangle the shit out of this, right? And so the next one you do is we want to go here to here, like so. And this angle should be 110 degrees. And the good part about this one is that you also line this angle up with the 50% level. And so if I've done my math correctly, that should be 110 degrees. Let's see how close I am. All right, and that comes out to 110.1. Hey, I'm getting pretty good at this, eh? I don't know whether you can see that. See, it says 110.1. So we're heading in a good direction. Do you see how these triangles just keep building on themselves and building on themselves and building on themselves? Hopefully you can see that. It gets a bit tricky. This is an extremely advanced concept that Raf is actually trying to get me to explain to you guys. I did put out a bunch of tweets on this, and if you want sort of a cheat sheet for this, I found this cool document. If you want to try and figure out the math, there's the math of this, where this is supposed to be completely symmetrical. and all of these sort of mathematical relationships are provable. So there is that document. So if we try and think this, can you see how we keep drawing the same triangles over and over and over again? And what should happen is all of the points of the fib spiral should intersect with all of the triangle points. Do you see that? Does that make sense, guys? You see how I do that? Boom, 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 boom. Right? So, to do these studies properly, you just have to keep tricking out this thing until you just have triangles up the yin-yang. For simplicity's sake, and here's where the problem comes in when drawing these darn things, is, I'm going to assume that this scale is correct. If that's the case, then what should happen when I draw my spiral is that each of the points should intersect with the various points on the actual spiral. So see that? There. So there, and there. So actually this is saying that really where it should be about there. Something along those lines. Does that make sense, guys? See how I did that? And what this means, though, and in this case, I've done the upside down one, right? You can also, to see that Twitter image is on TradingView, you can flip these around, right? So we'll go in here and we'll go counterclockwise, doink. And now we see the image off of the Twitter image. So do you see how those are basically the exact opposites? Something along those lines, right? So there, and there. Now, what should happen is when we draw all of these triangles, everything should correspond. So there to there. I think that's how I did it. You're going to have to get your protractor out and go 110 degrees, yada, 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 right? Just sort of like that. And it just, as you go deeper and deeper into the spiral, each of these triangles gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So if anything, if you want some fun, right, you want to sort of figure out the math of the universe, this is, Andrew, do you remember, like, this is the ultimate expression of our triangle consolidation? You remember where we had markets in transition? Do you remember that, Andrew? Graham, did you teach them that? The 3 different market in transition patterns? So this is one of those market in transition patterns, the triangle, and here's the spiral to try and help you understand the math behind why the triangle and the reload zones within reload zones concept works. So have some fun with that. And the problem, as I said here, Raf, what you're going to have to do is, where the hell is that image again? You're going to take this image, copy it, then pull up like a paint document. And this is what I was doing yesterday. And then we're going to have to rotate this so that it looks like the sideways consolidation. Rotate 90 degrees. All right. So do you see how this is starting to look similar? Right. And what we need to do is you need to keep drawing these triangles to infinity here. And in essence, what ends up happening is the spiral is nothing more. And really the interesting thing, guys, and this is so cool, is that this is basically how the universe is built. You actually understand that everything about our existence is nothing more than just triangles built on triangles, built on triangles, built on triangles, right? That sort of whole fractal kind of concept. So, we have, think of the maple leaf as sort of the fractal, and how, fractals within fractals and think about things like the Mandelbrot set, right? This whole idea that it just keeps compounding on itself. Well, the same logic with the triangles, right? And so the spiral is nothing more than the visual sort of representation of that that triangle sort of concept. I hope that makes sense. Does that help? I hope it helps a little bit. Turtles all the way down. Okay, no idea what that means. Is that a reference to this, or are you talking about something else?
Kind of a reference to that. It's a term that's used when we're talking about infinite regression.
Okay. Oh, cool. Okay. All right. So obviously, you guys, mathematic-wise, you know this stuff way better than I do. If anything, you guys are like, "Yeah, Brian, I already knew this," or you're just, blah blah blah. But anyway, it's kind of a cool concept. So have some fun with that. It's kind of a side sort of note that we ended on today. Raf, have some fun with that. See if you can replicate this kind of image, right? And the cool part about it is this thing's sort of telling you exactly where this consolidation ends. Now, usually what ends up happening is the market actually pivots about 2/3 the apex of this. So my hunch is that the ultimate bottom in this probably is going to come in here. And actually, I had a really good example. I think it was BNT, if I'm not mistaken. BNT. This one just sort of hit. I think it was this one. Maybe it wasn't. No. What was the one that started with B that just took off yesterday? Oh, damn. I can never remember. Oh, darn. It was a cool chart. Anyway, I was trying to show the whole spiral of it, and like literally right at 2/3 the apex, it just took off. Yeah, I don't think it was this one. It was another one that started with B. I can't remember what it is. Yeah, it's interesting. We should probably keep an eye on this and see whether that issue has actually been resolved positively, because it sure looks to me like this sure came into one hell of a trade level there, eh? See that? That's ridiculous. I have no idea whether it resolved bullishly or not, but you can see we got a kind of a fractal firing right in here, right? Oh, isn't that interesting? Number 1 on your fundamental analysis list. Huh, cool. Okay, so food for thought, something to think about here on this Ethereum versus Bitcoin off the weekly chart. Still looks to me like it's just in a range, nothing more, nothing less. And I suppose, if Bitcoin catches a bid and the whole market catches a bid here, my hunch is they all sort of move in unison. You can see both of them are moving up together. They might both take off here. And if the relationship basically stays the same, well, then that's basically just going to keep this in sort of this range. Okay, guys, why don't we leave it at that? So I've been blabbering on for about an hour or so. I hope you guys enjoyed and you got some food for thought here today. I'm heading off to the boy here shortly. You guys in all your various regions over in Europe, you just keep working away. Just build a plan, and I'll basically follow your plan. I'm totally excited, and actually really filled me with a lot of joy seeing the way that you guys have sort of stepped up and say, okay, Brian's sort of a stranger here. Let's see if we can put together a plan for him so he's a little less stressed coming around here. So thank you very much. People like David did awesome job. What do we call you? David or Sam or Susie or David? You got a different name over there on the Telegram though, right? Don't you? I can't remember. But anyway, all right, guys. You like Susie? Okay. All right, guys. Have yourselves a great day. I will see everybody bright and early, of course, for Daily Brief tomorrow morning. And let's see what the plan is for crypto through the rest of the day. Yeah, there is definitely a possibility, guys. We've seen this happen lots of times before. They bid the market up into the morning, and then it craps out later on through the day. You can actually see on Bitcoin itself, there's a bit of a bearish divergence now working on the short-term momentum. So don't be shocked if we have to just sort of backfill a bit here. All right, guys, have yourselves a great day. All the best, and bye.